What's going on? What is going on? Uh just thought I'd go live. Just, kind of was just impromptu, nothing that is not as nothing is planned, of course. Let's see. What's going on? I did a video on the NBA gambling situation and yeah, that was something that was kind of surprising, I think, for some people, but people probably already alluded to the fact that people were already cheating, in sports. I think they're gonna probably crack down even more. It's pretty much the eyeglasses and the magnifying glasses is on sports betting. In case people didn't know, sports betting is something that's new. It's it's been, I think, how long is it sports betting's been legal? Just fairly new. So like I probably definitely the last 10 years. Let me see, when was sports betting um, made legal nationally? Because when when fantasy sports was a big deal. I remember when fantasy sports, because FanDuel used to do fantasy before they got to the sports betting. You go online and you put your best picks up. You had a salary cap, and the best person wins. But what happens with fantasy? You still up against like just anybody else that got more money than you have, might have more data, and they even pay for data. It was a big thing. It's still a big thing, but people they basically they turned into basically they turned to the actual sports books, because even it's not, because see, fantasy was about like a pool of money and the best players win the poll. So this is the thing that people got messed up with fantasy sports. You thinking you getting beat by like people that are really good. Yeah, they are, but they got a lot of money. And your little one fantasy bet for $9 for $1 million pool prize, you know, you're betting against players that they're able to put in 10 bets, 100 bets. It's people that got big money. This people got, you know, they got they got more than 9 grand. They could just put, they could put in $109 bets. They probably even had computer apps or apps that will put in fantasy picks for you. It's all kinds of stuff. But that was like 10 years ago. That was about 10 years ago. But it basically everything became like open as far as different states being able to gamble, sports bet. Basically that opened up in 2018. So 2018, what, it's like 7 years ago. So that's when everybody started the sports bet. I started late. I started sports betting in 2021, and I didn't really start doing it heavy till like 2 years ago, or really about a year and a half ago. I started to really seriously sports bet. But that's going on. There's all kinds of things going on right now. Um, but what is really, really going on is people complaining about food stamps. Okay. I, this is like we're in, I think, third week of a government shutdown, and they're saying by Saturday, next Saturday, that the food stamps might be cut. People's food stamps, so pretty much like your welfare benefits for food, they say that it might be cut off by the 1st of November. That's what people are saying. I don't know is any truth to that. Let me look into this to figure out what the hell is going on. It doesn't This won't affect me individually because I'm not on food stamps. I really, to be honest, need to be on a diet. But it's people they out here, and they own food stamps. They require food stamps for their children. You don't, as a single person, you do qualify for food stamps, but you don't really get that much as a single person. Mainly, the people that get the most food stamps are um, basically women with children. Okay, so apparently, it's people making a big to do out of this. Um, they're making, okay, I'm seeing it, a lot of black people are very vocal about this, but mainly black women. But a lot of people don't understand that, okay, most of the recipients that are on food stamps are white people. That is like basically a fact across all spectrums, because white people have the highest population, so they tend to basically suffer anything that's negative, like as far as cutting some type of benefit. They will be affected the most because it's more of them. And not every white person is balling out of control. That's another thing that, like, I think when people get older and they start moving around, because like when I grew up, I didn't really grow up around a lot of white people. I mean, I did have white school teachers, white high school teachers, and people I was around. But where I lived mostly was African American. Everywhere I pretty much lived, for the most part, that was that fact. Other than like different part, like it has been places where it's not that many black people that I lived, but for the most part, mainly it's been um more black people around me than non-black. So the thing is for when you get older, you start to move around and you go to the country, you might go to a university, and a lot of universities are near rural areas. Like when I went to school down near the University of Illinois, it was basically rural. It was country. So one of the things that you notice about being in the country, people don't really make that much money out in the country. People don't really make that much money in rural environments because it's not that many people. It's more land, in usually in rural areas. There's more land mass than people. Okay, it's like it's a lot of land, a lot of land, right? But not a lot of people. In urban areas like Chicago, like New York, it's more people than land. Okay, like in Chicago, it's like people all over the place. It's people in cars. It's people in the store, people behind you, people all over the place, right? But yeah, one of those things is like basically because there's more people that live in rural environments in the country. There's basically more people that are financially struggling they have the independence of basically being away from a lot of people, which a lot of people, probably a lot of country people, I would assume mostly, and not even assume, I've heard people that lived in the country complain about the city because there's so many people. People drive fast because there's highways and traffic and everything like that. So people tend to um, complain about the big city when they live in the country because they used to basically everything kind of moving at a slow pace and things not being overcrowded, places not being overcrowded, right? Well, that's the thing with that. But the downside of it is when you live in a rural environment, in a country environment, you don't really have, unless you're farming or you're in some type of niche industry, you just don't have that much money in rural areas that's being circulated. So people they have to be creative to make money. Like a lot of people that are in rural environments, they drive trucks, they do, maybe are a mechanic or something like that, because you got to be able to make money, or during in places, right, where there's not that much economic activity. So you just combine millions and millions of people that live in these environments, and even people that live in urban environments that are not competitive, because you got to understand, all of this is about competition. I gotta say this again. I gotta I got, what I'm saying? Like a lot of people just don't think of things like, when they think of money and they think of the economy and the world economy and all of that. One of the things that people forget is, on an animalistic level, is competition. It's not like, okay, it's just you and you just have to go get the money the best way you can, and you're going to get this money and all of that. No, you have to go through people to make money. You have to, if you want a job, you have to go through hiring managers to get hired, right? When I got hired about 5 months ago, I had to do a couple interviews, and I had to get hired from a hiring manager. I had to get approval from a hiring manager to be able to, get that job, right? Okay. So, I mean, it's like basically in order to get money, you usually have to go through people or be very, very creative. I do believe in people being like, if you got a creative mind, meaning you smart, or you have some type of niche skill set, like maybe crocheting, growing plants, you know growing crops, whatever the case may be. You have it's something that you can do to make money, but in order to get money, you usually have to get it from other people, right? Other people are involved in you making money. That's why people have a hard time competing than others, because all of this is based off of competition. No one wakes up and is like, oh my God, I just want to be on welfare. Usually people that are on welfare, most of them, I would say, are people that have a hard time, or they come from a family that it's hard to get money, because maybe their family, you got entire families that are non-competitive. Like, what do I mean by competition? I know you understand me, but to be more concise, Nobody's basically giving you anything. In order for you to get any type of compensation or capital in this country, you have to compete. You have to go out. Like if you have a small business, you have to actually go out to the people and sell people your business in order to make revenue. That is a fact. That has been like that for thousands and thousands of years in business. You have to go to the people, or the people have to know where you are in order for you to sell them some products or offer them a service. That's how business works, usually in general, right? And if you don't have a business, you have to work for a manager. And a manager either is someone that's in between the owner or the actual owner of the business, and you work for them. That's how that works. So when it comes to people, when they concern themselves about money, or they even thinking about, EBT, and other people are not dependent on EBT or welfare, other people are competitive. Like even me, I am competitive enough to where, yes, I don't need EBT, I don't need welfare. But here's the thing, it's people more competitive than I am, right? I'm not rich. I'm not nowhere near rich or wealthy. It's a lot of people that are, quite a few people that are richer than me, that have way more wealth than I have, and they are competitive. Now, again, this is a thing where people understanding people, and understanding that basically it's competitiveness, or I call human competition, that is involved with getting money. Like, I mean, it's safe to say you can't really be no pushover if you want to have a lot of money in this world. You know, if you want to have a lot of money in this world, you most likely are not able to be a pushover and have a lot of money. And you do have to be flexible, because you're going to have people that you deal with, business or being an employee, that's hard for you to deal with for whatever reason. But in all of these aspects of trying to get capital, there's a competitiveness that's involved with this. And some people are more competitive than others. Some people have a competitive advantage. If your parents are rich and wealthy, they have most likely taught you how to actually, how they actually day to day, the things that they do in business or whatever they do, and they showed you some things usually on how they made that money that they made, or they just had some type of inheritance, and then they transition, and then that inheritance goes to you. You get part of that inheritance, and then you have to figure out how to extend that on to the next generation. That's usually how that works. Well, a lot of people don't have that leg up. They don't have the parents that have some type of wealth to pass on. So most people are starting out with zero, or something that may be education related, where their parents help them through their K through 12 education, and undergrad, and even graduate school level, to maintain some type of education to where they can go out and get a job, get hired for some type of specialty skill. That's tends to be how it works in general for a multitude of people. But all of that involved is not easy. It's not easy. I went to colleges and universities. Colleges and universities are not easy. Waking up, getting up early, going to school late at night, passing tests, writing papers, studying, those things are not easy because it's a competition in the society, in life, to compete with other humans for capital. That's what a lot of people don't talk about. They don't talk about the carnal level of you know, trying to get capital and trying to maintain capital that's involved. Like, we are all humans and we're competing over capital. Now, capital is just the means in between to buy goods and services, right? But those capitals, that capital that you have, it the more of it is, the more you can buy goods and services. So then you have more resources. So then you are a valuable human. And then you being a valuable male human with a lot of resources and capital, right? That makes you attractive to other women that might even be of childbearing age, or maybe even not. They have kids of them set. They already have kids, and you have a lot of provisions. You have a lot of resources. Those resources can be of use to other women, and they are attractive to your provisions, right? So it's a animalistic game, a carnal natured game that a lot of people don't talk about. How on an animalistic level, this is all about competition. It's all about human competition. You know, people competing with other people for some type of evolutionary success, right? So if people that have a lot of provisions throughout history have the most to provide, and they tend to have the most children, the most partners, right? Or let's say sexual access, or you know, sexual partners, due to having those provisions, right? The provisions to buy a lot of goods and services, and also resources, to basically make you a very highly attractive suitor, right? You know, even if you're married, even a man that is married with provisions, with a lot of provisions, is attractive to other women, because women are not, they're animals too. They see a man that has a ring on, that's married, they don't stop. Or not all women are just stop because you have a ring on your finger. They don't just see the ring, they see the car that you drive, how you look, and they see, this is a possible man that has a lot of provisions. I can use this man for access. This man, if I was able to, this is how women look at men, the women that, you know, really are in need of a man. They will look at this man as a possible person that they can access their provisions, right? He might be the richest, one of the richest men in the neighborhood or city or town, and you kind of know this guy or heard about him, and all a woman will see is a man that has a lot of provisions, right? A lot of provisions equals evolutionary success in this society. And this is, you know, this is going back to hunter gatherer days, you know, where if you had a lot of meat, if you had a lot of resources, right, bones and meat, you know, back in the caveman days, you had the provisions. That was just enough to offer another cave woman to basically join you in your cave. Now, how you get her might be a little bit different than how it is now, because women back then were forced to mate with other cavemen, right? They were forced to by brute force by other cavemen, literally dragged back to the cave, to a forced marriage. Let's just call it. Well, I mean, things progressed. Then people started to join. They started to have clans, and then it moved into basically outside of hunter gatherers, and just went into basically farming and agriculture. And in farming and agriculture, it became basically kingdoms, right? And a kingdom that saw this land mass where it was fertile, and these women were fertile because they were given proper nourishment and even excessive nourishment because of all of this land and crops and livestock. They attacked those kingdoms because the other kingdoms saw the possibility of taking over that fertile land, and also even those women, to copulate with those women, and they bring on their new kingdom. Okay, they take over that kingdom and put in a new kingdom. And now, modern days, you have, modern democracy, where people are supposed to vote and have public opinions, and vote their interests of the parties that they would like to have. And people work in factories or plants, or work in teams and departments, and they get paid, and they get paid a small amount of money. People tend to get paid a small amount of money because they are on the lower end of the spectrum, and or whatever they require as far as their job requirements is it's not that competitive, because anybody else can do it. Anybody can just pick up something, go work in a factory and pick up some things and then put it in another location. Matter of fact, they making robots to actually do that now, that pick things up and then put them in another location. So they're phasing out people that even work in these low skilled, low wage jobs. So now they don't even need these people anymore. Look at Amazon, for example. But yeah, I mean, this thing, as far as this November 1st shutdown dilemma, is something that they saying is real. Okay, is
and food assistant hangs in the balance as the federal shutdown drags on. It's creating an uncertain situation for millions of Americans, 1.4 million Georgians who rely on SNAP benefits. So Lucas has a look for us tonight.
We are tracking movement from both Democrats and Republicans when it comes to SNAP funding. Georgia's U.S. Senators Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are among more than 40 lawmakers urging agriculture sector key benefits fleeing.
So basically, welfare goes back to thousands and thousands of years. Even in Egypt, which was listed as one of the first civilizations in the world, they had welfare. They had grain. They gave so much grain to people. Like they had, they would hand out grain to their citizens. That's thousands and thousands of years ago. So this concept of welfare is something that is thousands and thousands of years old. That's why I don't really make a big deal out of welfare. I don't actually even I don't have a vilified approach that I look at people that even get welfare, whether they're skimming the system or not. I don't look at that as something that is a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal because I know it's not. I worked for the government before. The government wastes millions and billions of dollars every single year. They waste billions of dollars. Like I was in the military, okay, I was in the Navy, and they dump military equipment in the ocean. They dump planes in the ocean. Multi-billion dollar jets, they throw them in the ocean because they're outdated or they are mechanically unsound or whatever. It's just cheaper to just dump them in the ocean than to just bring them back. Like they waste so much money. This government wastes so much money all the time on. They give money to other countries. It is the little amount of money that people get for welfare. It is small in comparison to the military funding, the military waste that they do in the world. Because you got to understand that missile that they use to blow up some type of narco boat, that missile is like what, 20, 30, $50,000. They using that to blow up one boat full of people that most likely wherever they live, they were in poverty. I mean, like, it's not worth it. The actual value of what they waste on government budgets every year is way more than what they spend on welfare per se. So the thing is other people don't look at it like that. They look at welfare as like, we don't need these many people to be on welfare. We need to cut this. This is not necessarily what this is. They're complaining about actual healthcare benefits, I believe, or healthcare funding, which it would be Medicaid and Medicare funding that the government subsidizes people's healthcare. Okay. This is, something that I think that they possibly are going to come up to a vote because you don't want a lot of those people to actually, possibly blame you and your party for their kids not having any food on the table, or the fact that they have to go beg someone for some money to go buy food, So it's very political. It's a political strategy to not vote on this. And this happened in the last administration under Trump. There was a government shutdown. So it's happening again. This is a strategy that's used to basically try to politicize Trump administration into basically people not liking him and his administration. Because if people can't get their food stamps, if they are having issues because of a government armistice, which is basically a government impasse where people can't both vote on government funding in order to increase the debt spending, then this is going to continue on. So I don't know if they're going to cut down food stamps, but I guess the whole thing is we'll see for sure. one way or the other.
Though it's unclear if that would cover full November payments. Meanwhile, Senator Josh Hawley, a Missouri Republican, has introduced a bill to reinstate SNAP benefits during the shutdown, but that measure still needs a vote. Here in Georgia, state representatives Kim Schofield and Governor Kemp to use part of the state's to food supplement food budget of low-income families. And here in Georgia, many have already faced challenges with that program related to theft and a July cyber incident. Khalid Jenkins, whose 90-year-old mother depends on the program, worries many won't have anyone to fall back on if the government shutdown impacts November payments.
I'm quite concerned. I'm concerned about my mom. I'm concerned about other seniors in this same situation. You know, they're our most vulnerable population because they don't have the ability to increase their income. And there are many that don't have someone else that is going to be able to fill the gap for them. And so they're.
Yeah, what she's saying, a lot of young people don't think about. What she just said, she just said something a lot of young people don't think about. See, like when you out here like going crazy, you going wild, you spending money, you blowing money, you you doing all kind of stuff, you moving fast as you possibly can every day. I mean, eventually you're gonna get older, okay? You might even prematurely age, like by the time you in your early 40s, you getting gray hairs, probably have body aches and stuff like that. And what happens is people don't think like, well, I'm still gonna be living. How am I gonna, like, okay, imagine this, right? You 25 now, but you done blew through about 20 years where you ain't saved no money, you ain't bought no house, you haven't saved for you haven't started saving for any retirement, you don't have no retirement plan. Then boom, another 15 years goes by. You 60 now. You've done the same thing you've done since you was 25, since you was 45. Now you old. Now you're pissed off because you 60 years old and you probably you gotta do things you don't really want to do, like work. Like I'm talking find a new job, work. Like you gotta start a new job because you've blew money for 20, 30 years. You done blew money and you don't have anything. That's why the thing is, like, a lot of this is based off of sound financial decisions. Like this is a competitive world. What you don't do affects you, your children, your future children. Like people don't think of it like that. Guys literally like people don't think, oh, what happens if I get older? See, in the thing in that question, what happens when I get older? That is about your relationships with women or your inability to basically have some type of relationship with the woman to where when you get older, you both marry, y'all both can help each other out. You 60 years old, you ain't thinking of, you're not trying to get married, and it's pretty much like, people, the older they get, the harder it is to form relationships, and because people have trust issues and things like that. And the thing is like those things, people don't think about the future of them when they're 60, 70, 80 years old, and you can't really, it ain't no, what I'm saying? Like, what do you go, you go into a factory, you can't hang with the young people like that. You can't, your body starts shutting down at a certain point. You ain't no working in you. Like it gets you're gonna get to a, if you live long enough, you're gonna get to a certain point in life where you can't compete no more. Ain't no more competition. You can't compete in nothing but the bed and maybe the TV and the bathtub if you can get in it or get to it. You might need somebody to help you get out of bed, wipe yourself, and all of that stuff. Like, people don't think about that. People out having a good time right now. It's Saturday, going into it's Sunday morning. People thinking about if their football team gonna win. They think about they got to go to work, tomorrow, Monday. They thinking about everything besides their future. Like, what am I gonna be when I'm 60 and 70 and 80 years old? Am I gonna be able to party and bullshit like I am now? Am I going to be able to waste money when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old? Am I going to have money even at 60, 70, and 80 years old? Like, most people don't think of that because a lot of people, they're just surprised that they're still living. And I get it. I understand it. Like, every person that survives, they have survived the possibility of them, basically dying. Not surviving, right? And they're just amazed that they're actually still alive. So thinking about the future is like, what the fuck? Like, I'm amazed that I made it to this age, let alone 60 and 70 years old or 80 years old. And like, hey, I'm amazed that I made it this far. But you got to think about it, like, you will eventually be older one day. Like, if you hate old motherfuckers now and you're young, if you wait long enough and you live long enough and you keep waking up to the sun coming up, you're going to be eventually that old dude that you talk about. And then, once you get to that point, you can't even talk about old people no more because you the old person. You eventually become what you talk about. When you get older, you become that person that is that old motherfucker. And then, people might blame you for what's going on right now in the present because if you didn't do something or whatever, And that's the whole idea also of the concept of, basically, finance. Are you prepared for the present, the future, and can you recover from even the past, right? Your bills that you owe, the debts that you owe, and all of that. Like, are you prepared for your present and your future? Okay, the present is now, the future is later. Do you have things set up? Like, even if you don't have a retirement, the best thing you could do, and this is where a lot of black people mess up because a lot of black people rent at a rate of close to 60%. Do you have a setup to where you have a place you could live, that you could stop paying rent? See, that's the thing, like with houses, like that I always get in these housing debates. I used to get in a lot of housing debates with one of my exes, and the concept of owning a home financially, even just financially or just even personally, not financially speaking, it's just a good decision because you don't never have to stop. It's never a situation where you don't have to pay rent. Rent is like, it never stops. You're going to continue to pay rent as long as you live somewhere under someone else's roof. So the concept of you owning a home, having a home for yourself, you at least get to a point eventually where you don't have to pay any rent. And obviously you don't have to pay a mortgage. There's no stopping paying rent. It's just no stopping it. It's never going to stop. I know people like, you got to pay taxes on houses. Paying taxes versus paying rent is two totally different things. You got to pay taxes like what, once a year or twice a year. You got to pay rent every single month. It doesn't stop. And then also, I'm gonna talk about the population, the decline, the population decline, because I actually had a thought about that. Let me finish playing in this video here.
We're going to go hungry.
Those concerns extend to Georgians with disabilities, small children, and families in rural areas where food banks are limited. Meanwhile, federal workers also face paycheck uncertainty.
Kim said they pointed us to a previous statement blaming Democrats who, quote, refuse.
So that's that, that's that debacle. But another thing I was thinking about when it comes to the reason why women do not really want to they don't want to get married. They don't even a bigger amount of women don't want to have children. It's a large percentage of women that don't want to have any children. It's women that I know that are, same age as me in my mid 40s now. They don't have children and they don't plan on having any children. And once a woman get past like 40, and when they say they don't want to have children, you got to believe they pretty much they hard. That's a hard stance on them. They really they had a point where their decision to not want to have children is actually valid, because they're at the point where even if they wanted children, it'll be scientifically difficult for them to have children at that age. So you got a lot of women that don't want to have children. You got even men that don't want to have children and don't have any children also. And one of the reasons why, one of the like aha moments that I had about this was, I'm back, I'm pretty much back in Chicago right now. And fortunately for me, I'm not in a bad neighborhood of Chicago. I'm in a part of Chicago that I'm very familiar with. And it's like, it's kind of like middle class and in a little upper middle class, okay? But the thing is that one of the things that I thought of, and I thought of this recently, was the reason why a portion of people don't want to, a lot of people don't, I'll just say a lot of people don't want to have children, is I think is a human or a biological notion. Okay, it's a biological imperative and desire based off of current conditions, based off of present conditions in the world. So because present, this is my theory, and it's not just my theory. I think other people have said this, and they might have worded it different. The reason a lot of young people and older people decided to not have children and are sticking to it, and this is just humans generally. Has nothing to do with race or anything, but one of the things that I think that the reason why people they're not having children is kind of very similar to the Mouse Utopia. If they got videos on Mouse Utopia on here. I think I need to do one myself, but just like those mice stop producing children, and said, you know what, the hell with it. In case you didn't know what Mouse Utopia was about, it was basically an experiment where they set up some type of rat or mouse community, basically a whole bunch of mice, and they gave them all the water that they can have or need or want. They gave them all of the food that they can need or want, and eventually that mouse utopia or community it died off with all of the food that they needed, all of the water that they needed, air. They had everything that they needed, and they stopped eventually at a certain point in that experiment. I think it lasted for like maybe a couple years or something like that. They stopped having children. And I think the same way those mice stop having children, humans are deciding to not have children. And the reason why is not spectacular. You already know where I'm going with this, most likely. But I think the reason why they didn't want to have children, and the mice didn't want to have children, and the humans are doing the same actual thing or behavior or our actions to not have children, is because of the pressures in society and also the pressures of human competition. Okay. It's a lot of pressure in society. You don't need me to tell you that for you to either to believe it, or even if you don't like me, you understand when I say that it's a lot of pressure in society. You understand what I mean by that. And you would agree with me that it's a lot of pressure in society. It's a lot of pressure to work, make enough money to pay bills. This pressure in that, the day-to-day, waking up, going to work, opening a business, whatever the case, whatever you do to earn a living, the pressures to earn a living, to pay for the cost of living, it is a lot of pressure involved with that. And even if you separate that, the pressures of paying for paying for the cost of living, it's pressure in society because there's so many damn people. It is more than enough people in this world. And I can't believe that I'm even saying these things, because it's almost like I'm talking about, I'm agreeing with eugenicism or the study or theory of eugenesis. But that's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is people are kind of self-checking themselves in a sense of making decisions on not to have future children, because if there's pressure for them, they're thinking, which ironically is sound, I believe is a sound judgment or thought or prediction, that it's going to be more pressure for their children, possible children. If it's pressure for them, they're thinking it's going to be more pressure bringing other children in this world with this already pressure that I have. That's what they're thinking. Now, this ain't nothing new. There's other people have said this, and people have concluded to this before I even said this. Years before I even said this. Most likely even decades. Right? The Mouse Utopia experiment was, I think, done in the 60s or the 50s. And the thing is that just like those mice made a decision ultimately to eventually not have any more children, that's what people are doing. Because people are making a gauge sound judgment in their mind, in their mammalian brain, just like the mice, because mice are mammals too. They're saying it's too toxic of an environment. It's too much pressure, right? And it could just be, it could talk about other things. It could talk about the environment. It could talk about capitalism, whatever the case may be. They decided they're not going to have other children because society is just not doing, it's not comfortable for even them. So having children will add to the discomfort. So they're choosing not to have children. Now, the warriors like me, I'm busting in War 3. I don't care. Like, there's not that many warriors like myself. I'm a special stock. You know what I'm saying? I come from a long line of warriors, right? African warriors. So I'm gonna shoot my shot as I have. But I have a different thought process in it. I have to be more superior than a mouse as far as my thoughts. And I think most people do believe that they're more superior than a mouse in Mouse Utopia. I'll figure it out, or I'll worry it out, or thug it out, or whatever you want to call it. There are people like myself, and I ain't even, I am a pretty serious warrior, but there's some warriors that are even, I would say, more warriors than I am. But they have just been, decided to, deal with it. Now, African American people, because of the hardships and everything that was thrown upon us and continue to be thrown upon us, we handle a lot of pressure. Black people are used to dealing with pressure because a lot of pressure have been, have been formulated for us, for our ancestors, our parents. We're used to this pressure. We're used to dealing with this pressure of not having a lot of money, having to be almost on a state of where you have rations, and you're scraping to try to survive. Well, Black people, because of I call racism human competition. Okay, it's just a form of human competition. But because of that human competition, throughout generations, Black people are the best at dealing with pressure. Now, this new pressure, this new age pressure, that other non-Black people, they might not be used to this. They might not have the resilience, the enough resilience to deal with these new pressures. It's a lot of new pressures in this world, that it's just, it's just one day to the next. Like a couple weeks ago, there was no government shutdown. Now it's a government shutdown. More, and if you got people that have EBT, they have some new pressure that they possibly might have to deal with because of this possible, basically, lack of funding for EBT because of this government, related to this government shutdown. Now, I don't know if it, will happen or not or whatever, but the thing is that Black people are used to dealing with a lot of pressure. There's no other ethnicity in this country that has dealt with this type of pressure in this country as Black people have. And the thing is that even given that fact, a lot of Black people have chosen not to have children, not and not deal with all of this pressure, which is rightfully, I understand those decisions, but that world is scary to some of those individuals, to where this world is not, they're not confident to breed in this world and bring other children in this world through all of this chaos. And then even not just the chaos that the world has, the actual reality that they face, them bringing children into their own personal reality is something of a nightmare to these people, to a lot of people, because they're already struggling trying to pay for an apartment or a room or whatever, all of the bills, and then having a child that they have to bring into that is too much pressure for them. And that's why people are not worldwide. That's why people are not having children. In my opinion, it's due to societal pressure. It's already too many people in this world. And I think people, they have the ability, just like the mice, to judge, is this a fruitful time to have children or not? And a lot of people are choosing to not have children because in some degree or another, subconsciously or consciously, they do not believe this world is a fruitful reality for them to bring in children. And that's what people are doing. Like, I mean, it's not gonna stop either, because it's just too. I mean, United States in alone, you can even talk about Canada. You can add Canada. The housing prices, the housing unaffordability is rising and has risen in the United States. Housing unaffordability is a growing issue in America, and this is an issue that has not been addressed because of whatever reason, but this is one of the major reasons why people are probably not having children. Okay, you need some place to live in order to have to, like, the baby boomers. The reason why that generation was called the baby boomers, in case I know it's some people probably younger than 18 that listens to me or whatever, but they might not know this, right? But the reason why they was called the baby boomers is basically during that time, post basically World War II, pre-Vietnam, or during Vietnam, these soldiers came back home, and society as a whole, the society at that time, and when I say society, I'm talking about the government down to the basically the population, the populace of people. They decided, and they socially engineered a society for those veterans to come back home, and they gave funding for home builders. Home builders built these homes for these veterans. They were affordable with the current cost of living at that time, so they can afford these houses. And they were building these houses for these veterans that came back from World War II. And they naturally, when you got, people get confident when they got a lot of money in their pocket, they got a place to live, they got they bought a new car, a new a Packard Bell or whatever they want to call. What is it? I don't know the old school cars. A Studebaker. I know that's one old name. A car. They had enough money to buy a house and a Studebaker for them and the missus, and with the newborn child, right, in the oven already. Because when you have a place to live, you have. I'll just, this all goes in, I could, the reason why I'm very aware of this is because I've been educated to, basically about this for, when I was in college, this is very much in my wheelhouse. I used to have to do papers regarding this stuff. So this is, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. This explains what I'm talking about. And this is why people are not having children as well. Okay. So this here, let's see here. Let's make this big so you can see it, or bigger. So this here is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let me kind of blow this up a little bit. So notice at the bottom right here, right? Let me kind of yeah. So at the bottom it says water, sleep, food, shelter, clothes, breathing, homeostasis. Okay, if you don't know what homeostasis just means a healthy environment where your cells can reproduce, where you can naturally, as a biological animal, you can actually thrive and you can breathe and your cells can replenish and all of that. This is the type of environment that humans need. So here's the thing, right? And I just answered my own question by actually stating the facts of this. This is at the bottom here of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What did I just complain about or talk about 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago? Everything here at the bottom, like when the bottom is messed up, like when your foundation of your house is messed up, it's harder to sell the house. It's not impossible. I just did it. I just sold a house that had foundation issues. I didn't make as much money as I thought I was going to make, but I was able to sell the house because it's still standing. If your house has got foundational issues, you can structurally fix those issues. But in the meantime, you could just put a rug. You could put a rug throughout the whole house and nobody even would know you got foundation issues, other than if you bring an appraiser, a home appraiser, they can figure it out. But the thing is that the whole point of that conversation is when your foundation is messed up, it brings a certain level of instability to the makeup of the house. And ultimately, if earthquake happened or any type of natural disaster, the house is not in good standing with bad foundations. Okay, so the foundation of this country is messed up, very, very messed up, and to where basically people don't have the basic needs met. The basic needs, capitalism in the United States and in the West, I'll say, has gone to such an exorbitant extreme that people don't even have the basic needs met. They don't have the very basic needs of life. They don't have that. And those things are an issue to have because they have gotten so expensive that people are deciding to eugenicize themselves, if you want to say, because it's just too hard. It's too hard. Like, it's like basically you got the game, like you playing a game, you got the normal level, easy level, and a hard level. Well, society in America and different parts of the world is on hard mode. The game is on hard mode. So game on hard mode, I mean, warriors like myself that, go back to Ataris and, all of that type of stuff, and then Nintendo, Mario Brothers. I can sit and play a game for some hours until I can try to beat it or not. But I can deal with hard mode. I'm not saying everybody can deal with hard mode. Everybody don't want to deal with hard mode. So hard mode equals no kids. I'm not having no kids. It's too rough. Just imagine, women said this. If I had $1 for every time I heard this, it's already rough. Just imagine I have kids. I have children. How rougher it would possibly be. And they're just choosing not to have children based off of basically this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Based off of this, it is just too hard. And this is just the bottom. Not talking about all the way up here. This society has it very difficult for people to even have the bottom of what's needed to successfully be somewhat comfortable enough to have children in this country. So people are making a biological decision based off of how this society is so competitive and so much pressure to make it in this society that they just said, for the hell with this. I'm not having children. Okay. I'm not bringing any children into this mess, this pressure cooker. They're not doing it. Okay. And this is, and I hope this helps those that, because I was under the camp, before I had this aha moment because I do every now and again, I have these light bulbs that go on my head. And before I had this epiphany, right, I used to just think to myself, I understood why people don't want to have kids. For years, for decades, I was one of those people that just was like, I wasn't really gung-ho and trying to take risks and having children. But when I got in my 30s, I was like, you know what? I'm getting older. I got to do something here, But the thing is that I used to think like, people are, kind of weak. It's like, you don't want to have any kids. I used to think it was like, you're a wuss. You don't want to have kids. Like what the, I used to think like that. And I'm gonna be honest. I when I was out in public and I just saw how many people, just so many people and everything. And, I think I was in Walgreens and it was just a whole bunch of people waiting. And I just thought to myself, I could feel the pressure of society, of all of the people, around me. And I was like, this is why people don't want to have any children. People have already scanned the society and decided that this society is not conducive for me to have children. It's too much going on. It's too much pressure. And you have a capitalistic system where water, food, shelter, sleep is an issue. Is an issue. And these things it brings on stress. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is a question I have to ask to you. Do you think you will sleep better with $1 million in your account rather than $10 in your account? That's a question I have to you. And this is a question regarding, Maslow's theory of needs, hierarchy of needs. I always say theory of needs, but hierarchy of needs. It's very difficult to sleep when you have $10 in your account and you have to pay child support, you got to pay car payments, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay your mortgage, you got to pay rent. You got to pay for the hotel you living in. You got to pay for, prescriptions for medicine. You got to pay for co-pays for hospital visits. It's kind of difficult to survive for everyone to survive in that. Everyone is not going to be competitive enough to deal with all of that. And what you're starting to find out is society is very, very competitive. Okay. I'm sitting here comfortably explaining this because I've known this for years. And basically, like I said, I came up, I kind of had an aha or basically epiphany to understand kind of maybe more why people are not having children. And once I get a epiphany, it doesn't, I never forget it, so, um, I still, to be honest, I do honestly believe that I am a warrior. Like, I don't look at it like that. I believe that I can persevere. I believe that, if I'm alive, I can get through. I can make it. I can find a way, right? I'm an optimistic person. So I still would like to have children. I mean, I am not, I didn't snip myself or anything like that. So I still have confidence, but most people don't think like me. And it's not that I'm dumb, other people are dumb and I'm just smart. It's just other people just don't have the viewpoints that I have. I mean, they don't have the education I have. They weren't raised how I was raised. They don't know what I know. Most people, they probably only read the Bible. They didn't read the Quran. They didn't read the Torah, or even the Talmud. Well, I have. Does that make me a better person? No, it just makes me more wise. I mean, I have more wisdom probably than the average person, but it's people that are more wise than me. It is what it is. But I had that moment and I realized, this is most likely why people have gotten out of the business of making babies. And I'm talking about all people, not any, I'm not putting any race or anything. A lot of people in this country are acting like this. And rightfully so. It's a lot of pressure in this society. And I'm gonna be honest, like, it's a lot of economic pressure. And that's just economic pressure. You got actual wars that are going on. There's basically the UAE, the Arabs in Dubai, basically the crown princes and kings in the Arab world, they're funding a genocide in Sudan. Okay, you have the dark Sudanese, basically the Nubians. They're fighting these Arabs. Basically, a lot of people don't understand, basically, they don't understand history. So people, a lot of black people in America, they're ignorant to who their enemies are. They don't know, they don't know history, so they're not aware of who their enemies are. And they don't understand even why they're in the condition that they are in based off of history. It's based off of this, if you want to call it, if you want to say it in one word, you could say the Crusades. The Crusades are very, very much why black people have the history and the reality that they have today. It was it's a lot of it is based off of the Crusades. This Muslim world versus the Christian world, it has been going on for over 1,000 years, and from all of that, you had the transatlantic slave trade, because it was already a slave trade because of the Arabs before the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade, all that is Europeans copying what the Arabs was doing on the east coast of Africa. So, you know, people are not aware of this because they don't understand history. They believe history is something that is not worthy of study. History is one of the most important things you can study. That's what Elijah Muhammad said when he was alive. History is one of the most important subjects you could learn. You know, and the thing is that, you know, you still have this today where you have Arabs, even though they're very much there. It's weird, but it's not weird. But it's history. You basically have black people that look like Arabs, look like what's the dude Myron Gaines, for example. He's an Arabian, more of Arabian Sudanese, as far as his basically identity or ethnic identity. They're fighting the dark skin, basically the ancestors of the Nubians in South Sudan. They had to break the country up because it was a civil war. It's the Arabs versus the ethnic Sudanese. And you know, they don't put this stuff on news. That's why I stopped watching the news. The news blankets all of the things that's going on in the world. They only pigeonhole certain things in the news so you can get attention and immediate awareness of it, because they want to control. They want you to ignore the hot spots in the world and what's actually going on. You know, they want you to ignore those things. So they basically they don't show what's going on in the world. That's why when people were bombing Gaza, they didn't report that on the news. They didn't show any of those aftermaths of what was going on in that war. You know, because it you know, basically that's a form of propaganda as control. You don't if you don't see no evil or hear no evil, there's no evil going on. You know, so that's what, you know, that's the news for you, right? That's what the news is good for. But you know, you have the internet, which, you know, the powers that be want to police the internet because they don't want those things to be aware. They don't want you to go on Twitter and actually see what's going on, you know, because other social media censors posts and censors media. You don't see what's actually going on in the world. You know, that's why they want to control. You know, they're gonna try to buy Twitter. Somebody's gonna try to buy Twitter and try to censor it. You know, try to really put some strong censorships in it. That's what the next play is, because that's what they're doing with TikTok. They trying to control propaganda. Okay. But you got to understand, the good thing is there's a lot of pressure, and there's also pressure on the rich and wealthy. If society is under pressure, also the rich and wealthy are under pressure as well, because they're trying to hold on to their current wealth, and they need certain things to be done for that to be. Like, for example, they need you to continue to be stupid, to be deaf, dumb, and blind, and to keep going, to keep working like a slave on a hamster wheel while they get richer and wealthier. You know, that's what they want. And as long as you continue to do so, you don't challenge them, right? You don't challenge the status quo. So anyways, I just had to come on here and just kind of talk some stuff. Nobody is talking about anything like what I'm talking about. Very few people. People on here still talking about how can we get into relationships and What else they talking about? How do men and women get along with each other? You know what I'm saying? While the rich and wealthiest are getting richer and wealthier, and the poor is getting poorer and poorer. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, you know. But one of the things I will say is, you know, people eventually will get bored of that crap, and then they will stop making money, and then, you know, somebody gonna hop on the next channel, you know, to talk about that bullshit. But in the meantime, in between time, those that listen to channels like myself and others, you'll know what's going on while everybody else was just getting entertained, and they'll be jumping off the cliff like lemmings, and you'll know exactly what to do and where to go, and they won't, you know, because they just wanted to have fun on the internet.